New Sub-Rule 1. A member desiring to speak. A. In the case of a member physically present in the chamber, rise and face the chair of the speaker. Or B. In the case of a member virtually present in the House, raise his or her hand up and shall not speak until he or she catches the speaker's eye. Justification: to provide for how members on a virtual platform shall catch the speaker's eye. Rule 92. Questions to be decided by majority. Insert new sub-rules immediately after sub-rule 1 as follows. New sub-rule 3. Notwithstanding sub-rule 1, a member on leave of absence on behalf using the prescribed proxy form in Appendix H on page 11 of the report. New sub-rule 4. The proxy form shall be submitted to the clerk within 12 hours before the commencement of the sitting to which it relates. Justification: to provide for voting by proxy and circumstances under which a member may vote by proxy. Rule 95. Voting. Under sub-rule 2, insert a new subparagraph as follows. New subparagraph F. Voting by show of hands. Insert a new sub-rule 3 as follows. That's still under Rule 95. New sub-rule 3. The Speaker may, where necessary, designate a specific voting method for a member virtually present in the House, where the member is unable to vote through any of the voting methods specified under sub-rule 2. Justification: to include voting by show of hands and further permit the Speaker to designate a voting platform for members. Rule 200. Meetings of committees. Insert new sub-rules immediately after sub-rule 6 as follows. New sub-rule 7. A member may attend a meeting of a committee of Parliament through a designated digital platform. New sub-rule 8. The rules governing the participation of members in the proceedings of Parliament outside the Chamber of Parliament through a designated digital platform shall, with necessary modifications, apply to participation of members in meetings of a committee through a designated digital platform. Justification: to provide for virtual committee meetings. Part XX1X, General. Insert a new rule immediately after Rule 236 as follows. New Rule 236A, General Application of Rules to Digital Parliamentary Processes. 1. Except where these rules provide otherwise, the rules shall apply to all digital parliamentary processes online and to a member virtually present in the House or committee. 2. A requirement for written notice to the Speaker or clerk under these rules may be satisfied where a member submits the notice by email to the Speaker at parliament.go.ug, clerk at parliament.go.ug, and any other digital platform designated by the Speaker. 3. Any document relating to committee meetings and sittings of the House may be distributed by any electronic means to which members have access. 4. For the avoidance of doubt, the rules relating to the participation of a member in the proceedings of Parliament outside the Chamber of Parliament through effect upon a proclamation made by the Speaker. On page 11, we have the new appendix. Insert a new appendix immediately after Appendix G as follows. Appendix H to Rule 92, Sub-Rule 3, voting proxy form. I, the member designating member of Parliament representing constituency, do hereby appoint the member voting by proxy of Parliament representing that constituency to vote on my behalf on questions put on the following matters before the House. The member will then list the matters to be voted on by proxy, dated on the date borne by the signature. Verification by the clerk to Parliament. This proxy was received on specified date at those specified hours, and the mode of delivery is also specified, signed clerk to Parliament. Right Honorable Speaker, colleagues, honorable members, I beg to move that this report be adopted by the House.
Thank you very much, honour members, the Rules Committee and the members. I was only hoping that you might address Rule 81 on the dress code. Dress code. Dress code. Yes. Someone might come in a swimming costume to
Madam Speaker, the dress code is actually addressed under the new general rule on part XX1X, and that is sub-rule 1 of that new rule, which says, except where these rules provide otherwise, the rules shall apply to all, the rules of procedure shall apply to all digital parliamentary processes online and to a member virtually present in the House. This is intended to inform the member participating on a virtual platform that the member is still bound by our rules of procedure, which includes the dress code and discipline.
Honorable Oshave, and then Oshave Walswaka, Nambeshe. One minute, eh? We have a lot of work.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, I need to be clarified by the Chair where a member can make contribution by catching an eye of the Speaker through the virtual system. I want to be clarified, why do you again want that member when it's time for voting to appoint another person, yet through the virtual system I can say I vote yes or I vote no, and my vote is recorded. I'm hearing the committee is introducing a system where they appoint somebody to vote for you. I need some clarification around there.
Honorable Swaka, then Nambeshe, Lucy, Kibalia, and then Nzogu. Let's just have those few.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to get some clarification from the Chair. Chair, this virtual system is very good, but don't you think some members who may not be of this 10th Parliament may have a tendency of not being in the constituency and not being here, and somebody decides to be in London to attend just by virtue, is not in the constituency, is not here? Won't we create room for people not to go back to their constituencies and even here, and somebody decides to be in London and is just attending house? Yeah, that's, honour members, I just want to get clarification. Because somebody can decide after being sworn in, he goes with the iPad and he gets lost from us. I think you would put an issue where maybe if permission is granted for that member to be away for that particular time physically by the Speaker. But unless when that member is granted permission by the Speaker to be away physically. Yes, that's what I want.
Even for someone to go to London, I would have to be notified and I would have to give authority. Nambeshe, Lucy, and then Zogu Kibalia.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. With the advancement of technology, virtual parliament is most welcome. But the clarification I would like to seek pertains to proxy votes in the case of being procedurally compliant with confidential votes. We have, in the case of voting secretly, how will these proxy votes be made confidential, Madam Speaker?
Now, Lucy, then Kibalia, and then Zogu. Let me share, then I come back.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank the chairperson for the report. My point of clarification, and perhaps I seek guidance and maybe later on amend, is when you say a member will need at least 12 hours to be invited for the virtual meeting. The system we have seen now is, I think it takes the IT team about between 2 to 3 hours to invite me for the meeting. So now if you're talking of 12 hours, isn't this on the high side? Why don't we go with maybe 6 hours? That's my point of clarification. Thank you.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, I wanted to get clarification from the chair. Just on the other rule where a member must at least not be away for more than 15 days. I believe it still stands, much as we shall have this, so that somebody, as Honourable Waluswaga was getting worried, somebody at least much as you participate using this virtual program that we have, in the 15 days, the member of parliament must at least appear. Which city? Okay, that is from the chair. Secondly, Right Honourable Speaker, when it comes to voting, at times you may try to reach out to either somebody on table, clerk at table, or your office or someone when there is the voting process, and the easy person to get in touch with is either secretary to the clerk or someone. I wanted to get clarification from the chair whether, as he said, somebody signs and sends the communication that I, Chibalia, so on and so forth, I appoint Solomon to vote for me. If I ask the secretary to the clerk on my behalf to write what I've sent, or if I write a WhatsApp to one of the members and they come and bring the WhatsApp and show someone, can that also qualify to be my information? Thank you.
But other members, this is a stopgap measure for the COVID situation. I expect that when things improve, we shall go back to the old system. It's only that we don't know when we shall have a normal sitting in our chamber. That's the problem. And yet work must continue. Honourable Nsogu.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, I just want to seek clarification on two issues. One, that whenever we are taking a decision on a particular matter here, you normally take roll call, and when you take roll call, that is the basis on which you take a decision as to whether the House should proceed to take a decision on a particular matter. And in the circumstance that the chairperson has actually listed, that is the digital platform, Right Honourable Speaker, our internet is usually unreliable. That it breaks, even here in Parliament, here, Right Honourable Speaker, the internet
sometimes goes poor and we fail to proceed. And Right Honorable Speaker, with the proposal that the chairperson has made, I feel that for now, Right Honorable Speaker, when it comes to voting, let's maintain what is already in the rules of procedure, because there are no mechanisms that the chairperson has proposed that will mitigate the gaps that I have mentioned, Right Honorable Speaker. And then with the voting, Right Honorable Speaker, the proxy voting, I feel that that one will be most likely manipulated. I am still of the view that if you have to make a decision as a member, you come physically and be seen, and you must be seen to be taking a decision on behalf of your constituents, instead of being kept there when it comes to voting, Right Honorable Speaker, and someone I know, as the Honorable mentioned here, that you cannot say that, for example, you are going to adopt secret voting and then you adopt a system of proxy voting. So in a circumstance where it is secret voting, how do you mitigate that? The chairperson did not come out with clear proposals on how to handle that, Right Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Chair, if you could respond. Okay, finally, Mboya and then the Chair.
Thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, my concern is with proxy voting. Right Honorable Speaker, last week, I remember you sent people to the Sanction and Privileges Committee because there was a matter to do with forgery, the alleged forgery. Now, Right Honorable Speaker, in proxy voting, where we are saying that a member can write, how are we going to be sure that there won't happen forgery? Because some people are likely even to forge other people's signatures. For example, Nambesha is my friend. I will say Honorable Nambesha has told me I vote for him. Right Honorable Speaker, again with virtual, I'm just looking at, are we not likely to see people hacking into our system? Because in your communication last time, you even mentioned how people smuggled something on the order paper. And one would even imagine how something can even be smuggled, whether people hacked into the system. So, Right Honorable Speaker, are we not going even to see people hacking into our system to claim that I'm standing in for Mbwa? Thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Chair, if you could respond.
Honorable members, let me say at the outset that these are our rules of procedure, and we have laid them, the proposals before you, to adopt in all or to modify. But to answer the questions that were raised, Honorable Waluswaka was concerned that the first member was concerned about absence for 15 days and whether this could be abused. But in our proposed amendment to Rule 2, we clearly state that a member virtually present in the House refers to a member participating in proceedings of Parliament outside the chamber with leave of the Speaker. So that ensures that a member cannot just log into the system anyhow. This also helps in that, as the committee has observed, our internet system may not be big enough at the moment to sustain more than a certain number of members online at a time. Therefore, this leave of the Speaker and also the 8 hours, the 12 hours, would ensure that we get the maximum number of members that the system can hold, and that the clerk would therefore have sufficient time to notify the member that you cannot be put on the digital platform. It gives the member time, if the member so wishes, to drive and appear in Parliament in person. This is why we thought the 8 hours, the 12 hours was the outer limit, because a member may be very far. The member calls the clerk wanting to be put on the digital platform, and the clerk says it is full. Within 12 hours, the member can drive and appear in the House in person. As to Honorable Shabe said, why appoint a proxy when you can vote virtually? We thought this was important to do, because when we were voting for cities here, we noticed that there were members who wanted to vote virtually but were let down by the failures in the network at that time. And therefore, if a member knows that that member is going to be in a place where the network may not be strong enough, then the member wishing their vote to be reflected in the matter that will be on the other paper can appoint a proxy to vote for that member, as indeed was done when we were voting for cities. But we are only introducing this to ensure that a member who is already okay.
Clarification?
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker and Chair of Rules Committee. I would like to get clarification on two items. One, the virtual way of debating as a parliament is very okay, but I would like to be clarified, because I know that our rules cater for our being here before COVID. So wouldn't it be very okay to state that this rule only applies in an instance of coronavirus continuous existence in Uganda, or any other emergency that will apply? After that, it can be suspended. That's one clarification. Then two, I've also got in the same rules that now debate will be, you have to stand up and raise your hand. And you know that in our rules we have many other forms of raising our issues. So I'm wondering whether that is going to be very, very applicable in this situation, because I would think I'm raising on a point of order and the Speaker needs to give order precedence. How do I just raise the hand? Because that may not really help in such a parliamentary sitting. So, Honourable Chair, I just need some clarification in those two regards. Thank you so much, Right Honourable Speaker.
Right Honourable Speaker, the members' concern about the applicability of these rules is adequately addressed in our proposed new Rule 236A, Sub-Rule 4, which states clearly that this will only take effect upon a proclamation made by the Speaker. Therefore, as much as these rules are part of our rules, the Speaker has the discretion, as already exists under Rule 8, to decide that because of this emergency, because there has been a storm for 24 hours, we need to proceed nonetheless, we will have a virtual sitting. It can only be effected by a proclamation of the Speaker. Honourable Member, you still... Yes. But please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Madam Speaker, I want to be helped by by the chairman. I remember when we were being sworn in here as members of parliament, we came as the individual members of parliament, meaning whatever decisions we are taking us represent those people who sent us here. But now when you talk about proxy voting, asking, for example, for me to ask my senior minister, Honorable Kasaija, to the minister here to help me to vote, assuming it does otherwise. And will that help me and Ugandans? Will I have done my job as per my vote? That's basically one thing I want him to help me, because I am sure people keep on changing. I want to be helped. Thank you.
Honorable Chair.
Right Honorable Speaker, I would request colleagues to keep in mind at all times that these are not going to become our standard rules of procedure. Yeah. That these rules will only apply in extreme cases as decided by the Speaker. And the Speaker can decide, as the Speaker decided when we were voting for cities, that all members will be physically present in Parliament to vote. So I request that we keep in mind as we debate to adopt these rules that they are not going to become our standard daily rules of procedure, but only rules that come into effect during exceptional circumstances as decided at the discretion of the Speaker. I'll take.
Okay, honourable members, I put the question that the report be adopted. Those in favour say aye, the contrary no. I have it. Honourable members, let's now go to the specific rules.
Okay.
I put the question that Rule 2 be amended as proposed. Those in favour say aye, the contrary no. I have it. Put the question that Rule 9 be amended as proposed. Those in favour say aye, the contrary no. I have it. Put the question that Rule 24 be amended as proposed. Those in favour say aye, the contrary no. Ayes have it. Put the question that Rule 31 be amended as proposed. Those in favour say aye, the contrary no. Ayes have it. Put the question that Rule 32 be amended as proposed. Those in favour say aye, the contrary no. Ayes have it. Put the question that Rule 69 be amended as proposed. Those in favour say aye, the contrary no. Ayes have it. Rule 92, I put the question that Rule 92 be amended as proposed. Those in favour say aye, the contrary no. Ayes have it. Put the question that Rule 95 be amended as proposed. Those in favour say aye, the contrary no. Ayes have it. Rule 200, put the question that Rule 200 be amended as proposed. Those in favour say aye, the contrary no. Ayes have it. Part 29, I put the question that Part 29 be amended as proposed. Those in favour say aye, the contrary no. Ayes have it. Oh, no, it's a new rule under Rule 36. I propose that a new Rule 236A be introduced as proposed. Those in favour say aye, the contrary no. Ayes have it. Members, I put the question that a new appendix be adopted as Appendix H. Those in favour say aye, the contrary no. Ayes have it. Okay, honourable members, as the chair ably informed you, we are not replacing the old rules. These are stopgap measures for use in emergencies. You recall during the vote on the cities, there were members who telephoned to make their choices, but we could only record them. We were not able to include them in the vote because they were not here. So this is just a stopgap measure. It's not replacing our rules. Thank you very much. Next item. Thank you. Yes, Chair.
Permit me just to quickly say two things. One, let me thank my members and staff. This is uncharted territory, and they worked very hard to bring this report to fruition. But most importantly, Madam Speaker, I want to say that of all the countries that you listed for us to study in order to see how to adopt these virtual rules to our parliament, we found that none of them None of them adopted the virtual system before the 21st of April 2020. Therefore, all of them, actually all of them, copied from what you had already implemented here. So all I want to say, Madam Speaker, is that I have never been prouder to have you as my speaker when I realized that all these countries were actually copying from what you had already done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. We'll continue to lead in the Commonwealth. Next item. Prime Minister.
Item 6.
We're going to item 6, Prime Minister.
Item 7. Statements by ministers. 7.1 on the weekly updates on the activities of the National Task Force on COVID-19.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Right Honourable Speaker, I thank you for giving me this opportunity to give you a message on COVID-19. However, Right Honourable Speaker, as I have already communicated to you, there are a number of very urgent matters that Right Honourable Speaker, there are a number of very urgent matters.
Honourable members, please, why don't you allow the Prime Minister to say what he wants to say? No, please.
Madam Speaker, I'm rising on a point of order. Madam Speaker, the Right Honourable Prime Minister is the chair of the National Task Force COVID-19. Madam Speaker, recently His Excellency gave a directive that wherever we appear in the public, we must always be wearing the face mask. He is the Right Honourable Prime Minister in order to come and address this August House, more especially on use of COVID-19 without wearing the face mask. Is in order.
Honourable Right Honourable Prime Minister, I must reluctantly rule you out of order. You are not properly before this House. The clerk had some, okay.
Right Honourable Speaker, I must salute the Honourable Member for the vigilance and alertness, and all of us should emulate his very good example. And that's the way to defeat this pandemic. So, as I was saying, Right Honourable Speaker, we have a number of very urgent matters to address. One is the repatriation of stranded Ugandans who are abroad, a statement by the Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. We have also another urgent statement from the Honourable Minister of Finance on economic response to the COVID pandemic. And we have also 4 urgent loan considerations, and these loans include budget support loans, they include Kampala-Jinja Expressway, they include, so I want to propose, Right Honourable Speaker, that you allow the Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs to make a short statement of repatriation of Ugandans who are stranded abroad, and then another short statement from the Honourable Minister of Finance on economic response to the pandemic, and you then allow, again, the Minister of Finance and the chair responsible to talk about the loans. The statement I was due to make on COVID this afternoon was partly covered by His Excellency the President last night, and further statements on the matter will also be made in the course of the week. So if it's agreeable, Right Honourable Speaker, I propose that the order of doing business be adjusted as I have requested, Right Honourable Speaker.
Okay, now, honourable members, the issue of the economic impact on the population, that one requires time. And we have been waiting for 2 months. I don't want it to be stampeded. We can discuss it in the 5th session as one of the earliest activities. What I can agree to adjust is the issue of the loan, Jinja Kampala Express Highway. Budget support, and it's important that the Minister of Foreign Affairs advises the people of Uganda and their relatives what is going to happen. So if we could quickly take 1 hour, no, 45 minutes for your statement. 45 minutes? How long is your statement? It's a short statement. But members will make some comments. Okay, Minister. Yes, Honourable Leader.
Item 7.2.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, the Right Honourable Prime Minister said President made his address yesterday, and so that is enough for now. And yet, we have a lot of issues. You will realize that even 2 of our members of parliament were arrested yesterday. They were only released this morning. And we have cases, community cases, already getting bigger and bigger, increasing in especially Elego and also parts of northern Uganda. Besides, this COVID-19 has become so political. Even those who are in national task force, when they take the meeting to State House, they are not cleared. So they go, and even when they have official invitations, they stop on the way. So we need more statement from the Prime Minister. He cannot tell us that what the President addressed yesterday is enough for now. We want to hear more on COVID-19, and we want to know how we can expand the participation. But also, when funding goes to districts, then they have to make supplementary budget. How about the donation at national level? How are you treating those donations? Especially, again, also when some of these items go to the districts. I want to give, for example, in Gulu Regional Referral Hospital, when they talk of 50 bed sheets, pairs of bed sheets, only 4 pairs went. But also the ambulance donated, worked for only 1 day, and it broke. It broke down 1 day. When we don't have even ambulances at our regional hospital, which is supposed to have even up to 4 ambulances, does not have ambulance.
Okay.
Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker.
Order.
It is very annoying. Very, very annoying. If we cannot have proper statement by the Prime Minister made on this We want to have a proper statement, and we have been requesting since last week for even, you know, quarantining illegal as a border point.
Okay.
And also the management of truck drivers.
Okay.
Right Honorable Speaker, we are not happy with even the way resources are being used. We need a lot more statements from the Prime Minister.
Okay.
We are not going to be satisfied with what he has just said.
Okay. Honour members, Prime Minister, I do not agree that what the President said substitutes what you are supposed to have said here. Members represent the people here. They have many policy issues. So you may say you can postpone, but to say it is enough, no. You must come back and give the members, please, honour members, please. I'm trying to sort out your issue. Honour Prime Minister, you can say you are postponing your presentation, but don't block the opportunity for members to ask questions and raise issues.
Right Honourable Speaker, can I propose that my statement, which is ready, I make it any time during the course of this session. I have no problems at all. That's why I came. I came to actually make this statement. So there is no problem at all. I'm available to make the statement as the Speaker shall direct.
Okay, let us quickly go to Foreign Affairs. Foreign Affairs. Let's go to the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Please.
Right Honourable Speaker of Parliament, honourable members, I want to thank you for the opportunity for me to brief this august House on the situation of Ugandans stranded abroad due to the airport and border closures following the outbreak. It is not possible to close my mouth and speak. Maybe I can cover it. Right Honourable Speaker and honourable members.
Order, honour members.
Government has taken the decision to allow Ugandans who have been stranded abroad due to the closure of the airport in Entebbe and our borders to return home in a phased but orderly manner. This decision was taken after careful consideration that are meant to balance the needs of bringing home these brothers and sisters of ours, but also ensure the safety of our people at home. Right Honourable Speaker, on the 11th of March 2020, the World Health Organization declared novel coronavirus, COVID-19, a global pandemic. And in his statement, the Director General of the World Health Organization expressed concern about the severity of the outbreak and the relative inaction by many countries around the world to try and halt the spread of the disease. In this regard, as a measure to forestall a possible outbreak of pandemic in Uganda, His Excellency the President, on Saturday, 21st March 2020, announced the immediate closure of Uganda's borders and the Entebbe International Airport effective midnight on Sunday, 22nd March. These closures were informed by an assessment done by the National Task Force on COVID-19, which concluded that imported cases posed the highest possible source of the outbreak and the pandemic in this country. Honourable members, while these closures were timely and done in the best interests of the country, they also created a parallel problem whereby several Ugandans who had traveled abroad on short visits for business, medical treatment, tourism, and other valid reasons got stranded either in the countries which they were visiting or in transit countries as they traveled back home. Additionally, honourable members, many Uganda students who had completed their studies abroad were not able to return home on account of these travel restrictions. In the Middle East, where many migrant workers got laid off from jobs due to economic slowdown brought by COVID-19, many Ugandans were not able to return home despite obtaining air tickets from their former employers. Indeed, the government has been aware of these resultant problems, but like we said before, it was of strategic importance to first secure the homeland base, as well as plan for the return of our fellow citizens who got out abroad. Honourable members, we know that many of these stranded Ugandans have now run short of money and are largely dependent on the goodwill of either their hosts or on donations from friends. Government is aware that this situation is no longer tenable, and it is time for them to start coming home. In arranging the return, Madam Speaker, the Minister of Foreign Affairs undertook to identify and register all Ugandans who got stranded abroad on account of the airport and border closures. So far, our missions abroad have registered close to 2,400 individuals who are stuck in 66 countries across the world. The list of these Ugandans has been uploaded on your website as Annexure 1 and the countries where they are. Madam Speaker and honourable members, government has carefully reviewed this problem and taken note of the following. The country has now built considerable domestic capacity to manage the COVID-19 epidemic in terms of structures, human resources, and citizen awareness. The number of stranded citizens who intend to return home are fairly manageable, 2,400, although they are spread across many countries. In arranging for our citizens to return, there is a need to ensure that both personal safety of the returnees as well as that of the communities they are coming to join is assured. In this regard, government has agreed in principle to allow Ugandans who got stranded abroad on account of closure of the airport and borders to begin returning home in a phased manner, starting with those who are in dire need. The exercise will be done within a framework to ensure both personal and public safety. Madam Speaker, Our view is that the first phase of these returnees should be Ugandans who are stranded in distant places such as Europe, the Americas, West Africa, East Asia, and the Middle East. The reason for this being that they are more likely to be in dire need of help than those ones in our region. Besides, many of them already have air tickets, which they were traveling on before they were stopped, and would simply need to validate those tickets with available airlines. Additionally, honorable members, managing their arrival through the controlled environment of airport will also give us available experience on how to deal with even greater and larger numbers that may come by land around our country. In implementing this exercise, we should be cognizant of the capacity of our health authorities safely manage the numbers involved. The next phase will then be for these neighboring countries who are most likely to come by car or on foot through the borders. By the time we embark on this next phase, the necessary structures and safeguards will have been put up on the border crossings. Honourable members, in this regard, we have started on the following implementation activities. The concerned departments of government are now setting up specific requirements that they will need to ensure a safe and smooth implementation of this exercise. 2, my ministry has already discussed with some of the airlines still operating worldwide networks of routes around the world, such as Ethiopian Airlines, regarding modalities by which they can pick up our people from the different locations and bring them to a more central place, such as Addis Ababa, from where we can further arrange for special flights to bring them home. Number 3, we have also held discussions with the United Nations, which still operates many humanitarian flights across Africa, to consider placing some of the stranded Ugandans on these flights as they transit through Entebbe, or as they bring in UN personnel. Members will be aware the airport in Entebbe is a UN logistics base, and the United Nations continues to operate several flights in and around Entebbe. Madam Speaker, today there is a meeting going on, organized by our ministry, between the United Nations and Uganda Airlines. United Nations wishes to hire Uganda Airlines planes to be operational within the region so that they can bring in their staff alongside our own Ugandans. As you know, Uganda Airlines planes are all sitting at the airport, and I think this would be a good business opportunity. The World Food Programme will also be operating some humanitarian passenger flights in the region, which we can take advantage of to return some of our people. We have additionally met with the International Organization of Migration, IOM, who have agreed to consider assisting particularly our immigrant workers who are stranded in the Middle East to return home. We are awaiting confirmation of their offer from their regional offices. The IOM has also agreed to support the government of Uganda in completing the ongoing modifications of the arrival area in Entebbe Airport. These changes are meant to make the facility compliant with WHO and Ministry of Health social distancing standards. I wish to also inform you that the Department of International Development of the Government of the United Kingdom donated to Uganda a large marquee which will be used to expand the arrival space at the airport, and we are grateful to for this offer by the government of the United Kingdom. We have also engaged with the government of the United Arab Emirates about assisting our immigrant workers who have lost their jobs due to economic effects of COVID-19 and now wish to come back home. In this regard, the United Arab Emirates has agreed to arrange this gentleman is telling me that with the speaker's permission I could speak without a mask because I feel I can't breathe well. So I ask you, Madam Speaker.
Okay, lower it a bit.
Huh?
Lower it.
I will lower it a bit.
Yes.
And I will not face you. We have also, as I was saying, Madam Speaker and honorable members, we have also engaged the government of the United Arab Emirates about assisting our migrant workers who have lost their jobs due to economic effects of COVID-19 and now wish to come back home. In this regard, the United Arab Emirates has agreed to arrange for at least 3 flights to bring these Ugandans home, and as soon as our Ministry of Health is ready to receive them, this offer will be utilized. Fortunately, many of these migrant workers already have air tickets, which were provided by their former employers. Finally, on these arrangements, the Indian community in Uganda has also proposed to arrange for a special flight to bring back both the Ugandans who are stranded in India and also some members of the Indian community who hold Uganda resident permits but got stranded while visiting their relatives in India, and we are examining this proposal. Honourable members, I wish to clarify that
Order, please.
I wish to clarify that by allowing Ugandans to return home, government is not reopening the international airport to regular passengers or passenger flights, because the risk of imported cases is perhaps higher even now more than before. Government will therefore permit Ugandans to return only on specially arranged flights, which will be cleared for that purpose. All the returning travelers will be required to meet their cost of own travel back home, as has been international practice for many countries. We have since established that many of our returnees already have, as I have said, air tickets, which they were traveling on at the time of closure of the airport, and they would now simply need to update these tickets with other airlines. The Ugandan travelers returning will be required to provide proof of negative COVID-19 test results before they embark on their journey. This will help to avoid infecting each other whilst on transit or on the plane itself. You may also wish to know that each country has instituted specific testing requirements prior to international travel. For example, in the United Kingdom, a passenger must test for COVID-19 at least 10 days before they can be allowed to travel through Heathrow. And in the United Arab Emirates, their timeline is 6 days. As of those who test positive COVID-19, they will have to first undergo treatment in their present locations before they can be allowed to travel back to Uganda at a later date. On arrival in Uganda, the returnees will again be tested and then taken to mandatory quarantine for a minimum of 14 days in a government-designated facility. The Ministry of Health will ensure that by the time they are released into the communities, they have been certified as healthy. This exercise of returning our nationals will focus only on those who got stranded abroad due to the closure of the airport and borders. Not anybody who just wants to come and visit, because even the visiting won't be useful. If you want to come and visit your relatives and you have to spend 14 days in quarantine, it may not be worth it. Honorable, Right Honorable Speaker and members, you will recall that the recent situation in China, where we got several distress calls from some Ugandans who were being thrown out of their houses and denied services, mostly because the Chinese local authorities, especially in the province of Guangdong and the city of Guangzhou, had become very strict in testing for COVID-19 before anyone could access basic services. We clearly remember, we all clearly remember the loud calls for their evacuation, which of course we could not undertake due to the lockdown worldwide. However, I wish to report that through our diplomatic intervention with the Chinese government, we were able to secure some reprieve for these Ugandans, and the feedback that we are getting now from them is that they are very relieved and going about their business as usual. Additionally, we have agreed with the Chinese government that this reprieve will continue to last at least throughout this period of the pandemic. Now, there are many Ugandans in China. Some are there completely legally, others not so very legally. And this registration and testing for COVID brought out so many of them. But through our negotiations, we have said that in spite of anybody's immigration status, they should be looked after and be given the necessary assistance, and then the legality of their stay can be discussed when this whole COVID-19 is over. You will also recall that the issue of our students in Wuhan and the desperate calls by the relatives for evacuation. The fact is that these students' problem was not necessarily about them returning home, but the rising cost of living during the lockdown and the understandable fear of contracting the disease. Government then took the bold and wise decision not to evacuate them, but provide a small financial package that has sustained them to this point when they are back at study. The feedback from these students in Wuhan is that none of them contracted the disease, and they are all safe and have resumed their studies. We therefore consider this a matter successfully resolved. We will therefore continue to work closely with the Ministry of Education and Sports to monitor the situation of all our students abroad and to give them all the consular support that they may need while out there. It is true that there has been some delay in remittances of their stipends, but the Ministry of Education is working hard to rectify this position. Additionally, I wish to call on the parents and the guardians of students who are privately sponsored to provide them adequate moral and financial support during this difficult time. Honorable members, I must re-emphasize that for us to succeed in safely returning our nationals who are stranded abroad, we need to prepare adequately for this exercise. In this regard, I request honorable members to fully support the Ministry of Health, the other frontline agencies, and my ministry to arrange for an orderly and safe return for many Ugandans who are stranded abroad. Madam Speaker and honorable members, I wish to conclude by first thanking all Ugandans who are stranded abroad and their families for being very patient, just like all our people at home here who have been patient as government deals with this very difficult and unprecedented situation. Additionally, I wish to say that the government is fully committed to ensuring the welfare of the safety of all Ugandans, both at home and abroad, and will continue to act both rationally, responsibly, and with regard to this pandemic. All government interventions in the fight against COVID are being made after careful analysis and in the best interests for the country as a whole. Madam Speaker, I thank you, and I thank you, honorable members.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Now, we don't have a lot of time. I don't know, Honorable Adeke and Amoding, those are the ones who first raised the issue. Supplementary?
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, through you, permit me thank the Minister of Foreign Affairs on behalf of my colleague and myself who raised this matter before the House. Right Honourable Speaker, I want to say that the report and the statement that the Minister has given before the House is very comprehensive, and it gives hope to any Ugandan out there who is listening and is stranded in any of those countries, that there is something that is happening and that the country or our government is responding to their challenge. Right Honourable Speaker, I just wanted to emphasize one issue to the Honourable Minister, because while we were handling this matter, we got so many messages from Ugandans who needed this kind of assistance. In terms of the phased approach that the Minister has given before the House, I pray that the Minister prioritizes people who are sick. There is a category of Ugandans who happen to be sick. Majority of these countries where Ugandans are working, especially in the United Arab Emirates, okay, the Middle East countries, Ugandans are working there, but they are not catered for in the health insurance schemes of those countries. Even before COVID happened, when a Ugandan falls sick in those countries, they are usually referred back to their countries to get further treatment. Right Honourable Speaker, when this incident happened, the situation worsened, and many Ugandans who had some kind of illnesses could not access the health system of those countries, particularly I make reference to the Middle East. Therefore, Right Honourable Speaker, I want to give you a case of one person called Juliet Kagoya Hilda, who died last Sunday, just this Sunday, this week. She was suffering from fibroids, just fibroids. It's a disease that cannot kill somebody. But she succumbed. Okay, let me restate it. It is preventable. It is a preventable death. We should have saved her life had the Minister and his team organized for evacuation of these Ugandans in time. So she died last Sunday because there was no way to come back to Uganda during this time. So such cases are many, and these are the cases we would like you to put as a priority, not just in the Middle East, but also other countries. And maybe information.
Oh, let's conclude.
Thank you, colleague, for allowing me to give this information. As you talked about the United Arab Emirates. Right, Honorable Speaker, as the Minister rightly said so, that the biggest number of our people in UAE and Qatar. Minister, these people in Qatar received information that they were going to be picked on the 60th, and they got communication from UAE. Unfortunately, I think they received information this morning that they cannot be picked on the 60th. Yet I think that they arranged everything and even left most of the rooms where they were staying. They were on the street waiting to be picked on 60th. Now they can't be picked on that date. So we don't know what will happen. And lastly, Right Honorable Speaker, the Minister didn't talk about Eddie Kenzo. We expected him to say something about Eddie Kenzo, the musician. Possibly when he comes to respond, he will.
Now,
okay.
Please conclude. Please conclude.
Right, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Jackie, my apologies. I think this the time. But we just want to thank you, Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament, for giving us the opportunity, and the Minister for bringing this very, very needed and urgent report before the House. We only pray before you that you expedite the process so that you can save lives. And all the Ugandans have been waiting for this statement. I'm sure they are ready to return to Uganda, and we want to thank the government for this gesture.
Honourable Minister, I have been receiving letters from Mauritius. Ugandans in Mauritius have been writing to me, and I said wait for Tuesday, but I don't see them feature anywhere. I don't know which of our missions takes charge of Mauritius. Mauritius, I don't know who takes charge of Mauritius. Yes.
Madam Speaker, we are working with, as I mentioned, on the African continent, with the United Nations flights. And those ones, we want to coordinate them together with Mauritius, South Africa, and there's even 2 people in Madagascar. So we are trying to bring them as a cluster from that region. And our mission, I've seen your letters, Madam, you've been writing to me. But let me say this just for the record. Nobody is more keen to return these Ugandans than we are. We are all concerned. But it is important that we prepare ourselves well. And where they really come in Entebbe, you'll find, and I thank God that yesterday the return of students, school has been postponed, because some of the quarantine areas we are thinking of are schools. If the children had returned, it would have complicated our exercise and further delayed it. But it is important that we have reception centers where they are going to be quarantined, because everybody will have to be quarantined. And it is very important that we do that. So we are keen to bring them back as quickly as possible, but we cannot make it faster than the facilities to receive them can accommodate. Let me finish this. Let me finish this. Kenzo will be part of the people who are coming from West Africa. He's stuck in Ivory Coast. I'm aware of it, Mr. Kenzo. And actually, he may not be as desperate as those you are talking about in the Middle East. But we are trying to bring them back. And we are thinking that we could make Abuja the hub for West Africa. Then you can airlift them together. Rather than, it is impossible to pick each from every country. It's just a logistical nightmare. It's a logistical nightmare. Thank you.
Okay, Honourable Minister, I want to thank you very much and the government for responding to the demands of the population on this issue. Keep us updated. I don't know when you can come back next. I don't know. To an update. A fortnight. Oh, okay, Atkins and then.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And as a shadow minister, I really want to thank my colleague on the other side. But Madam Speaker, I want to bring you to the attention of this country that the situation is not as rosy as reflected in the minister's presentation. There are a lot of people, a lot of Ugandans that are stranded all over the world. And I think it would be unfair for the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Madam Speaker, to focus or narrow this to the Arab countries. We're fully aware that we have fellow citizens stranded in Kinshasa or DRC and even Southern Sudan. Madam Speaker, I don't know whether it has come to your attention that we have Ugandans that are stranded in a place called Ilego. It's branded and marked as a no man's land, and they're stuck there, Madam Speaker. Now, when it comes to quarantine, there is a fundamental question, Madam Speaker, as to whether these people will be quarantined in Uganda or will be quarantined in South Sudan. What will be the fate in terms of welfare for our fellow citizens in their place? And lastly, Madam Speaker, you're aware that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has not done much as far as giving citizens access to consular and mission information. I think it would be better for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to serve Ugandans or citizens a comprehensive listing of all of our missions and consulars, so that families can try to reach these missions and our consulars overseas to find a way of trying to help and reach their dear ones. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay, honourable members, I think I just want to help the Minister of Foreign Affairs. You know, many Ugandans living abroad not want to be associated with the Uganda missions there. Yes. So you tell your constituents it is important for them to register, but they hide. And then when there's a problem, you have to look for them. And both, and then Okupa.
Right Honourable Speaker, as we speak now, even a member of staff from this Parliament, the ICT department, was caught up. She had gone for training in Nairobi.
Oh, Ghana.
Now, the Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs, with your permission, can I remove the bed sheet in my?
You have been using it during the morning.
Yes, I won't look sides to. Right Honourable Speaker, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, can the Minister clarify? There was an advert in Tororo about those Ugandans who were stuck in Kenya, I think issued by the Ugandan High Commissioner in Nairobi. When now people are calling, they have gone to the offices, to the High Commission, they have not gotten any help. They are now calling us members of Parliament, and this is the only opportunity we can speak on their behalf. People who are stranded there, they would just need a bus. And you know, the blame games, including a member of staff here. Honourable Minister, you put the announcement through your commissioner in Tororo. Why have you refused to repatriate those people? Because the announcement ran in Tororo. All those who are stranded with the relatives in Kenya should let us know. And I'm sure this member of parliament from Malaba, Tororo to County South, he knows for sure. I can take more additional information from him.
Very briefly, Bodaman.
Thank you very much, my colleague, for giving way. Right Honourable Speaker, the information that I want to give Honourable both is, it is true there are very many Ugandans who are stranded in Kenya and who would have loved to have moved by bus and come back home. But because the advert that was ran has not helped them, what many have resorted to now, Madam Speaker, is to walk on foot, and many have walked and reached up to the border, and those are the people who have been complaining here time and again, who are using the porous borders to cross back home. That is the information that I wanted to give you.
Thank you very much for that report. And those are the people, the new cases we are receiving. When they are from Kenya, we call them Kenyans. When they are actually Ugandans, something needs to be done. And I think it's not only Tororo, but the whole country, those who went to Kenya. Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs, clarify.
Honorable Cooper, and then we close.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, and I want to thank the Minister for Foreign Affairs. I think he has given us a very comprehensive report. I've looked at the table attached with that list country per country and the regions. I think the most important thing is for us to encourage people to let us know which place, like West Africa, it's Abuja that handles, how those in other countries, Ivory Coast, Sierra Leone, can connect to the central point. I think that's very important for them to know. But, Right Honorable Speaker, the Committee of Appointments approved the Deputy Governor, Dr. Atingengo, who is in Washington, D.C. May we know what arrangements are there to deliver him to Uganda to take up the position that Parliament approved. I know it's very key and a very important thing. Now that we are in this economic situation, we need a substantive Deputy Governor to handle the issues regarding monies. The other one is, I've tried to look at list, the Rota Chan. Last time, Honorable Gilbert, the King of Acholi, I think he was also mentioned here that he was stranded in London. When I look at the list of those in the UK, I don't see, I seem not to. I think it's very important for the Kingdom of Acholi to have their king with them. The other issue is, please, I'll conclude first with what I have, then I can give you opportunity to the Speaker out. The other one is the proprietor of Forest Mall, Mr. Shaggy, yesterday called me also. He's also stuck in Washington. I think it's Washington or Boston. So I think those are some of the people you need to get to. Dr. Kuku, the role he plays in the Cancer Institute. He's stuck in Somalia. I think we need him because there are a number of patients he has been handling. I have one of the patients who are under his care. We are now stranded with it. Finally, Madam Speaker, there is also a staff of Parliament stranded in Ghana. I think I can take
Honour members,
please.
The list is here. The staff members will mention she's in Ghana. Please, why don't we just encourage the minister to move quickly so that our people come?
Thank you so much, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, the information I wish to give to my honourable colleague, in addition to what he has said, Right Honourable Speaker, Honourable Minister has talked about people who are Ugandans who are supposed to be brought from India, and he mentioned about other Indians of Ugandan origin who are supposed even to be brought. Right Honourable Speaker and honourable members, don't you think that there is a likelihood of smuggling some Indians into the country under the disguise that the minister informed the Parliament about this? And lastly, Right Honourable Speaker, the minister talked about students, and he said private students, it should be the honors of the honors of the parents to think about them. Don't misinterpret. So, Right Honourable Speaker, my concern is now that why are they thinking about only students who are being sponsored by the government, Right Honourable Speaker? Why shouldn't they think about all students as students? I thank you so much, Right Honourable Speaker.
Honour members, I think we have listened.
Yeah. Can I make one promise, Madam Speaker?
Just make a promise, Honourable Minister.
I want to say that I'll be returning to this House in a fortnight to give you an update. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next item. Thank you very much, Minister. There is some hope now. Next item.
Clarification, Right Honourable Speaker.
Item 7.3.
Clarification, Right Honourable Speaker.
On a statement by Minister on the effects of floods on Uganda's roads network.
No. Is on the works? Is the Minister of Works here? It's not here.
7.4. Statement on the bridging the demand.
Before you go there, we had said the Prime Minister has requested to make 2 changes for the Jinja-Kampala Express Highway before we go to the COVID. Honorable Minister of Finance. Chair of National Economy.
Report of the Committee on National Economy on the proposal by government to borrow up to US dollars 229.47 million from the African Development Bank, ADB, and euros 90 million equivalent to US dollars 105 million from Agency Franchise Development, AFD, to finance the construction of Kampala Jinja Express Highway project.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, even before presenting the report...
Order, Honourable members, allow the chair to present a report.
Even before presenting the report, it has passed. Right Honourable Speaker, this is the report of the Committee on National Economy on the proposal by government to borrow up to US dollars 229 millions 0.47 from the African Development Bank and 90 million euros from the Agency Francaise, AFD, to finance the construction of Kampala Jinja Expressway project. Right Honourable Speaker, a request was presented to this House and was committed to our committee on the 11th of March. We followed the normal procedures.
Honourable members, there are many meetings going on. The chair is on the podium.
We followed the normal procedure of analyzing the loan. We had meetings, we looked at the documents, we also visited some of the sites of this road. We had field visits. Right Honourable Speaker, by your background, we all know that the Jinja Express Highway is our umbilical cord to the rest of the world. It is the main route for our exports and also for our imports. In 2011, Government of Uganda identified the Kampala Jinja Express project, among others, as a key strategic project to leverage with public-private partnership. And the project addresses chronic urban congestion facilities moving between the 2 largest economic centers in Uganda. The road use experience is generally unsatisfactory as a result of high vehicle operating costs and high accidents and mortality. This road has got the highest mortality rate in the whole country. The proposed Kampala Jinja Express Highway project aims to address the above issues from a sustainable standpoint. Right Honourable Speaker, this project is well aligned with the planning frameworks, the Uganda Vision 2020, and the Road Master Plan and the National Development Plan. And in addition, the project anchors on the 15-year National Transport Master Plan. It is also aligned to the Sustainable Development Goals. Right Honourable Speaker, when we are analyzing loans, we normally look at the performance of the ministry on other loans. the performance of the Ministry of Works has not been extremely good because of slow absorption of borrowed funds. And this is mainly due to lack of counterpart funds to match the borrowed funds. Right Honourable Speaker, the project objectives, impact and outcomes, this paper was uploaded on your iPads, are covered under paragraph 7. And the outcomes and expected projects outputs are also covered under the same paragraphs. The project, the Kampala-Jinja Expressway project, is a public-private partnership consisting of 95 kilometers with limited access toward the express between Kampala City and Jinja. And it passes through four districts: Kampala, Wakiso, Mukono, and Buyukwe. The project has 5 components, which are infrastructure development, project management, audit, corridor development plan, livelihood restoration program. Those are the 5 comments which make up the project. And the cost of the project, the project cost is estimated net of taxes and customs, including financial contingencies, at $1,547.38. Right Honourable Speaker, the details of that are well covered under paragraph 9.2. The financing arrangement, the project financing structure is presented in table 4 or paragraph 9.3. The loan terms and economic and financial returns and budgetary implications. The ADB and the AFD will provide $229.46 million and 90 million euros respectively to finance the construction of the project on a design, build, finance, operate, maintain, and transfer basis. The project structure under the terms indicated in table 5. The loan terms as follows. The $229 million have a maturity period of 25 years with a grace period of 17 years, a repayment period of 17 years with a grace period of 8 years, with front-end fees of 0.25% of the loan and a commitment fee of 0.5% on undisbursed amounts. And on the loan from the French Development Agency, it's $90 million on a 20-year maturity with a repayment period of 17 years after 8 years of grace. The interest is tentative 1.5% Euribor for 6 months. Right now, the Euribor is at minus 0.418, so for purposes of competition, is considered to be 0. The commitment fee is 0.5%. Loan conditions, the loans have got the following conditions. 1, certified true copy, availing certified true copies of approval of the loans by Parliament, and submission to the bank of the Attorney General's legal opinion. And the third one is a letter to the bank authorizing persons to sign withdrawal applications together with specimen signatures. Right Honourable Speaker, the debts, the loans are quite, they are concessionary. Right Honourable Speaker, on budgetary implication, the budget is part of, the project is part of the approved public investment plan, and it's also included in the financial year 2021 draft budget estimates for Uganda. Right Honourable Speaker, on economic returns, the internal economic, the EIRR economic rate of return is estimated at 12%, which is quite good for road projects. And Madam Speaker, on the implementation arrangement, UNRA is the executing agents of the project, and is the executing agents for the project. And for Kampala Jinja Express, the government of Uganda through UNRA will enter a concession agreement for a special purpose vehicle of over 30-year period. And UNRA, as the primary contractual counterparty, will be responsible for monitoring performance of the project. The PPP committee, supported by the technical team, will be working under UNRA. Right Honourable Speaker, the current debt situation is at 37% of GDP. And despite the increase in sovereign debt, at that rate the loan is still sustainable. The loan got a very good score in complying with the parliamentary assessment guidelines of 53%. Observations and recommendations. Right Honourable Speaker, the project compliance to PP-related approvals. The committee recommends that government should ensure that all measures are undertaken to ensure that this project complies with all the PPP Act of 2015 and the requirements to enable it to deliver with successful project, and will provide a model of the GOU institutional contemplating PPs. And capacity constraints of UNRA, the government recommends that the capacity of UNRA should be strengthened to manage PPPs, since it's going to be the pilot PP for them to manage. On counterpart funding to fully implement the resettlement action plan, the committee recommends that the funds for land acquisition should be ring-fenced to enable completion of the compensation payments prior to commencement of construction works. In addition, government should expedite putting up central utility corridors to avoid multiple compensations whenever public infrastructure projects are being constructed. I'm happy the Right Honourable Speaker is here. We've made so many recommendations regarding this whenever we present infrastructure projects. We'll be happy to see government coming up with a policy on this. The cost and time overruns, the committee recommends that UNRA should ensure that the cost and time overruns risks due to this PPP project are adequately mitigated. Usually infrastructure projects suffer cost overruns, which make them very expensive and cause delay in implementation. The committee strongly recommends that government agencies should desist from making commitments on behalf of government before seeking approval from Parliament. We have been rushed on a number of times when they are praising infrastructure projects because commitments have been made in advance before getting parliamentary approval. On the local content, the committee recommends that government should further assist the local contractors to enhance their capacity, especially in acquisition of heavy-duty vehicles and road construction equipment at affordable rates to enable the effective and efficient participation of the local construction industry in the PPP project. And Right Honourable Speaker, we were informed recently that under the private window of the Islamic Development Bank, such facilities on support of government can be accessed by the private sector. The committee further recommends that the implementation of an appropriate monitoring strategy for the project will be important to ensure that existing management measures are effective, to detect and analyze environmental and social trends, to ensure relevant environmental legislation and to ensure that to be a measure of performance of environmental and social management measures, and to provide early warning of potential impacts and determine the extent of anticipated impacts. Right Honourable Speaker, before I make the conclusion, I would like to lay the following documents on table: a copy of the report which I've read, a letter from the President approving the project, a letter from the President guiding on the sources of funds for the project, a parliamentary government brief which was submitted to Parliament, clearance of the financial implication of the project, consistency with the planning frameworks, copies of the minutes of the meetings which we held, a loan agreement between the Republic of Uganda and the ADB, and the project appraisal report of the Kampala-Jinja Expressway project, and the Ministry of Transport tolling policy, performance of externally financed projects of UNRA, and minutes. Okay. Right Honourable Speaker, I wish to lay these documents on the table. Right Honourable Speaker, as I conclude, I would like to thank members of the Committee of the National Economy and the officials who worked very hard to analyze this project. This is the first PPP we have examined so far, and because of their very good input, I think it has come in well. In conclusion, Right Honourable Speaker, the committee recommends that the request by government to borrow $229.47 million from ADB and $90 million from the French Development Bank to finance the construction of Kampala-Jinja Expressway project be approved, subject to the legislations herein. Right Honourable Speaker, I beg to submit. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Honourable Chair and the members of the Committee on National Economy. Okay, Honourable Sabunya. Sabunya Pachuto, 1 minute each. Mutebi, Yakecho. I don't.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. I thank the committee for the report. Mine is simple. Given that this is the first PPP loan that we have, PPP project, and yet a loan, I would implore the Ministry of Works and the Privatization Unit to make sure that no delays are caused because of the way no delays are caused in the process of handing over the land for this project. Because with the PPPs are perpetually, once you make delays, the cost overruns will come in and it will become impossible for us to finish the project because of cost overruns. So what I'm saying, Honourable Speaker, the way where the expressway is going to pass must be, the people must be compensated, land given to the project implementers in time, so that we don't cause project cost overruns on this project. Otherwise, I recommend that we pass this loan even without much debate.
Honourable Pachuto. Pachuto. Pachuto, then Mutevi.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker.
Right
Honourable Speaker, I want to thank the Chair and the committee members for this report. Right Honourable Speaker, I want to implore members to recognize the fact that this is already an ongoing project. And Right Honourable Speaker, this road is not only good for international trade, but even for our local trade. For a good road access, will boost our domestic and international trade. Right, Honourable Speaker, this loan will help to bring to completion the already ongoing projects. Right, Honourable Speaker, this is one of the major routes where our bulky exports and imports either exit or enter the country. Therefore, it is very important that we pass this loan so that we can improve the access for our goods both in and out of the country. However, Right Honourable Speaker, I want to implore the Ministry of Works to take into consideration and to fast track the rehabilitation of the railway lines right from Kasese to Pakwach through Tororo, through Gulu, so that we can decongest our roads. And also the fact that some of these goods actually end up in Congo, in South Sudan, and the Central Republic of Africa. We don't need to bring them the whole way to Kampala. Some could actually end up in Tororo via Gulu to Pakwach. Therefore, I want to implore government to fast-track the rehabilitation of the railway lines. It is also important to note that most of these goods enter the country. They are merely transit goods, and they end up in South Sudan and DRC. Therefore, my humble appeal to government is that we don't only look at the Ginger Express Highway. We have some of these goods as we prepare to rehabilitate the railway lines. We are still going to use the road, and therefore most of these goods pass via Karuma through Karuma Pakwach Road. Madam Speaker, if you happen to travel on this road one of these days, it is really an appalling situation. Therefore, as we look for funds for the Ginger Highway, we need to bear in mind other roads that help in boosting our economy. I beg to submit.
Ona Mutavi, then Aogon. Aogan Yakecho, Muyanja. No, but honourable members, do we really have to take a lot of time on this loan? Really? Yes. Okay, Honourable Mutavi.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker.
Mutavi, Aogan.
Right Honourable Speaker, I want to first thank the committee for the very good report that has brought out the terms of the loan above the necessities of this road. Much as it is called Ginger Kampala Express Highway, this road is an international gateway of Uganda for trade, investment, and other purposes. I therefore want to implore the members to fully support government, since this is one of the loans which is coming with very good terms. Having said that, I have some concerns that I would request the government to address. This is one road whose route has been changed on several occasions. People have been inspected, and some are not sure whether they're going to be within the course of that road. So their land has been left redundant, and we need to deal with this to get away with those uncertainties. Two, we've had impediments with many of these projects before, where loans are procured before negotiations with the landowners are sorted. We had this with the Katosi-Nyenga Road, where the road was delayed because some of the owners of the land were still resisting. So we need to deal with that in order to avoid any problems with this much more desired road, which we needed yesterday. I want to implore you to support this loan so that we can go on with this project.
Aogon, Senyonga, and then Yakecho. Aogon, Senyonga, then Yakecho.
Right Honourable Speaker, I want to start by thanking the committee for the quick work done. But one, Right Honourable Speaker, there has to be some kind of clarity as to what you mean by the word PPP. Are we going to pay for the road? Let us know. Because I know the poor people who use the road, needs to simply use the facility without any impediment. So is it a PPE or PPP that needs a toll gate for people to pay? Number two, Right Honorable Speaker, the issue of counterpart funding has always been a big issue.
Honorable, point of procedure.
Right Honorable Speaker, I'm standing on procedural matter. The justification for Jinja-Kampala Highway has been discussed in this Parliament several times. Unless anybody in this House has got something new or there are some technical issues, Right Honorable Speaker, and considering the fact that we have so many urgent matters to dispose of today, Right Honorable Speaker, I want guidance, and that's why I'm here on procedural matter. Is it really procedurally right for us just talk about theories, whatnot, and PPPP? I think it is high time we just declare that this project should have been passed by this Parliament yesterday, but we have now brought it to today. So why are we now wasting Parliament's time? Right Honorable Speaker,
members,
can you guide us appropriately?
Are there objections to this loan? Objections? Okay. Honourable members, I put the question that the report of the committee be adopted. Those in favour say aye, the contrary no. Ayes have it. Let's go.
Report of the committee.
Budget support and then COVID. Clerk. Budget support. Budget support.
Report of the committee.
On the law.
Report of the committee.
Well, finish with the loan.
Report of the Committee on National Economy on the proposal by government to borrow up $300 million US for budget support for financial year 2019-2020.
Madam Speaker.
From the International Development Association IDA of the World Bank Group to provide sufficient financial resources to the health sector and to mitigate negative effects of COVID-19 on the economy of Uganda, and special drawing rights of $361 million, approximately $491.5 million US from the International Monetary Fund, IMF, to balance the payments and budget support to address the negative effects of COVID-19 in financial year 2019-2020.
Chairperson. Let's finish with the Prime Minister. Let's finish with this budget, with this loan, Prime Minister, and then we use the still time we do. You are there, but...
Right Honourable Speaker.
I moved you after.
I'm here on behalf of the Committee on National Economy to present a report of the committee on the proposal by government to borrow US $300 million for budget support for financial year 2019-2020 from the International Development Bank of the World Bank to provide sufficient financial resources to the health sector and mitigate negative effects of COVID-19 on the economy of Uganda, and to borrow special drawing rights, 361 million, approximately US dollar 491.5 million from the International Monetary Fund for balance of payments and budget support to address the negative effects of COVID-19 in the financial year 2019-2020. Right Honourable Speaker, before I proceed with presentation of the report, permit me to lay the following documents on table. One, a report of the Committee on National Economy on the proposal by government to borrow $300 million from budget support for financial year 2019-20 from the International Development Association of the World Bank Group to provide sufficient financial resources to the health sector to mitigate negative effects of COVID-19 on the economy of Uganda, and the special drawing rights 361 million, approximately $491.5 million from the IMF for balance of payments and budget support to address the negative effects of COVID-19 in the financial year 2019-2020. Two, His Excellency the President's approval of the project, a letter in that regard. Three, a brief to Parliament on the proposal by government to borrow the money we have pointed out. Four, proposed allocation and utilization of resources under the US dollar 300 million and 151.5 million COVID-19 from IMF to address COVID-19 effects, basically the budget support. 5, clearance letter by the National Planning Authority. 6, financing agreement between the Republic of Uganda and the International Development Association. 7, explanation on the financing agreement by the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. 8, IMF board approval. 9, Uganda Development Corporation investment priorities. 10, Uganda Development Bank intervention strategy to reshape the economy during the post-COVID-19 pandemic in Uganda as at 5th May 2020. 11, the Microfinance Support Center Limited request for capitalization to promote employment among the economically active poor through increased affordable credit to small traders, saving groups, and smallholder farmers affected by COVID-19. 12, an overview of the performance of the economy presented to the Committee on National Economy by the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. 13, minutes of meetings held to consider the proposal by government to borrow the loans in question. I beg to lay. Right Honourable Speaker, in the interest of time, I try to summarize the methodology. The committee held meetings with the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, the Minister of Health, Bank of Uganda, Uganda Development Bank, Uganda Development Corporation, Uganda Revenue Authority, and the committee also reviewed the following documents: the Minister's brief to Parliament on the proposal to borrow.
Those the members can read.
Sorry?
The members can read those. I think.
Okay, those ones can easily be read. The background, Right Honourable Speaker, I may not deliver to go through the background. All of us know the adverse impact the The choices, Right Honourable Speaker, government faces now is to raise money, and the preferred source is now external borrowing compared to domestic borrowing, which would crowd out the private sector, and that's why the preference, and that's why the government approached the IMF for this loan and other external borrowers. The objectives of the borrowing, just to be quick, in view of the need to provide sufficient financial resources to the health sector to support its crisis response efforts to COVID-19, bridging the gap in the country's balance of payments position to maintain foreign exchange stability and mitigate other negative effects of COVID-19 pandemic on the economy, there is need for acquiring more financing to address the effects of COVID-19 on the Uganda economy. The specific objectives are the following: to address urgent balance of payments of the country, to address the government fiscal needs precipitated by the COVID-19 pandemic, to provide a stimulus package to support severely affected businesses through provision of affordable credit through the state-owned Uganda Development Bank, to provide additional financing to the sector, to provide additional financing to government social protection measures and addressing the effects of natural disasters. The proposed borrowing will substitute for domestic borrowing, as I've said, which will have continued to crowd out the private sector in accessing affordable credit in the domestic market due to the need to sustain business during post-COVID, during the COVID-19 period and beyond. Financing arrangements and utilization of resources. Budget support, 300 million from IDA loan. The intention is to support provision of sufficient financial resources to the health sector and mitigate other negative effects on the economy due to COVID-19. Bank of Uganda, a portion of from the IMF loan will go to Bank of Uganda, 340 million, to support Bank of Uganda to bridge the gap in the balance of payments position through maintaining sufficient levels of foreign exchange reserves and to enhance the to ensure that the shilling is stable. More budget support, part of the IMF loan, 31.5 million, to finance government response plan to COVID pandemic, including acquiring necessary health supplies, diagnostic kits, masks, personal protection equipment, and supporting the vulnerable population. These funds will also bridge the revenue shortfalls due to COVID-19 pandemic on the economy. Further budget support being part of the IMF loan, 120 million. This is support UDB, support the private sector that has been affected by the adverse effects of COVID-19 by boosting the lending capacity of Uganda Development Bank. These funds will be used to support manufacturers and other producers who are engaged in import substitution and export promotion activities. The details are contained in Annex 1. If you look at Annex 1, you'll get the figures there. The key support to manufacturing and the SMEs, capitalization of UDB, capitalization of UDC, support to microfinance support center and circles, support to agricultural productivity. Number 2, social protection and natural disasters, SAGE, social public infrastructure destroyed by natural disasters. Number 3, government commitments plus managing arrears and released budget balance that could lead to arrears, including capital expenditure and recurrent expenditure, and released supplementary and new pressures, domestic arrears including coffee seedlings, support to innovators engaged in COVID-19 interventions, managing rising water levels of lakes and rivers. Number 4, health sector and COVID-related, additional funding for health sector, Uganda prisons additional financing. And the total budget support in dollars got from the two sources totals to $451 million, and $340 million to Bank of Uganda for balance of payment support, which adds up to $791.5 million. Terms and conditions of the loan. The IDA loan, the International Development Association of the World Bank Group, will provide financing to enable government in managing the fiscal needs precipitated by COVID-19 pandemic under the following terms. Loan amount, $300 million. Maturity period, 38 years. Grace period, 6 years. Service charge, 0.75% per annum. Commitment fee, 0.5% per annum. The International Monetary Fund will provide emergency financing under the Rapid Credit Facility to finance the urgent balance of payments to bolster the revenue reserve buffers of Bank of Uganda and other fiscal needs, which is basically the budget support of government precipitated by the COVID-19 pandemic under the following terms. Loan amount, special drawing rights, 361, equivalent to $491.5 million. Maturity period, 10 years. Grace period, 5.5 years. Interest rate, 0%. This is an interest-free loan from the IMF to address the current situations the country is facing. In the interest of time, permit me to go to the loan and current debt situation of the country. By end of December 2019, total public debt stood at UGX 49,446.57 billion, as estimated as the share of GDP to stand at 36.3%, with the approval of the two loans totaling to $791.5 million, as I have said. The public debt will increase to UGX 54,881 billion, taking into consideration the earlier budget support loans approved this year. The proposed borrowing of $791.5 million alone will increase the debt to GDP ratio by slightly more than 2%, to be precise 2.2%, increasing the normal share of the debt to GDP to 40.3%. But public debt will remain within sustainable levels, as can be seen in that table. I don't think I will read the details. Our observations, committee observations and recommendations. The committee noted the need to ensure that COVID-19 related resources are used in a transparent and accountable manner. And the committee recommends that the government of Uganda should ensure that COVID-19 related resources are used in a transparent and accountable manner by undertaking targeted measures that involve establishing a separate reporting mechanism for COVID-19 related expenditures. On the purpose of borrowing, which I've already outlined, the committee recommends the following: that government should urgently expedite Uganda's export strategy. You know, we are talking about balance of payments because we're not doing well with our exports. Strategy to boost exports in the short to medium term to improve the balance of payments position. This improvement will require less financing from reserves that could be drawn to finance the balance of payments deficit. In order to improve productivity in the economy, government should target the food industry to boost export revenues, because this is an area where Uganda has got a comparative advantage in the East African region. Bank of Uganda foreign exchange intervention should be limited to smoothen out excessive volatility. The bank should be judicious in determining when conditions are disorderly versus allowing the floating exchange rate to absorb shocks in order to maintain investor confidence. Once FDI confidence is restored, the bank should rebuild its foreign reserves to a level deemed adequate, at least not falling below 3.5 months of imports. In order to support the wider goals of financial sector stability, the support to Bank of Uganda should focus not only on macroeconomic stability, but also addressing the liquidity constraints of commercial banks, in particular the local commercial banks. This will generate more impact and effectiveness of the Uganda economy. More investment for economic stimuli is recommended, with US $340 million prioritized for Bank of Uganda in bridging the gap in balance of payments, positioned for macroeconomic stabilization, and only $120 million as budget support to purchase to support private sector. More balance is required between economic stabilization and economic stimuli, given the medium to long term effects, multiplier effects and implication on debt sustainability. On performance of the economy and economic outlook, the committee recommended that there is a need to improve the external position of the country. The committee recommends that government should embark on increasing productivity in productive assets sectors, especially agriculture sector, in the short to medium term, unlock the constraints surrounding the oil production phase to boost export receipts and attract foreign direct investment. Regarding additional measures to support the economy, the committee recommends the following. Government should strengthen social protection mechanisms through provision of targeted cash transfers and cash for work, and distribution of food to vulnerable households, together with stimulus package to support severely affected businesses. Government should further increase efficiency in social protection interventions like the distribution of relief food and items. There is need to study the efficiency of food rations versus cash transfers. Government should further take advantage of this financing to expand the existing social protection programs like SAGE and increase youth participation in public works. Government should provide a stimulus package to support the private sector. This should include measures to accelerate repayment of government arrears to suppliers, temporary deferral of tax payments, and extension of tax exemptions on medical equipment, among others. With regard to sound fiscal management to ensure fiscal sustainability, the committee recommended the following. Government should opt for sustainable options to increase foreign inflows through aggressive export promotion, attract foreign direct investment, especially in the oil industry, by concluding oil production procedures, among others. This will cushion the shilling against further depreciation amidst external environmental challenges, rather than opting for temporary measures that cannot be sustained, given their costs and impacts. In the event that COVID-19 pandemic persists, government should explore seeking debt relief under the G20 COVID-19 debt relief initiative and further engage other bilateral creditors for that purpose. Government should further strengthen public investment management to bring the fiscal deficit and public debt to a downward trajectory once the crisis abates, and also revert back to plans of strengthening the budget process. With regard to financial sector liberalization, the committee recommends that government should use an appropriate policy mix to attract FDI. In the medium term, government should review the policy stance in view of controlling capital outflows. With regard to expenditure controls in foreign currency, you know we have a liberalized capital account. The committee recommends that agencies should contract service providers in the currency approved in the national budget, irrespective of the level of imports that will be undertaken to hedge against existing rate risks. Regarding dependency of the health sector on external funding, the committee recommends that the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development and the Ministry of Health should ensure that budget support to health sector is leveraged to address both the existing COVID-19 emergencies and the already existing priorities in line with NDP 3 and health sector strategic plans, given the magnitude of financing beyond COVID-19 emergencies. The financing should be directed towards the NDP 3 comprehensive program for addressing minimum health care requirements, especially starting with national and all regional referral hospitals. the Ministry of Health should ensure that the current requirements as a result of the sector's increased capacity to respond to the pandemic that may not be covered under this financing are budgeted for in subsequent sector budgets to ensure sustainable operation of pandemic-related health facilities, and government should follow up on its promise to prioritize health sector starting financial year 2020-2021 with more investment in the health sector infrastructure development to avoid last-minute panic where external resources may not be forthcoming, and government should also expedite passing the law on health insurance. Regarding boosting the lending capacity of Uganda Development Bank, the committee recommends that government should further strengthen the bank's governance to strengthen its delivery on the envisaged development impact on the economy. Adherence to sound and effective corporate practices is central to the effective, transparent, and seamless operations of the bank, and impacts the bank's ability to attract the right human capital, investment partners, stakeholders, and enhance shareholder value. Government should further explore opportunities for getting lines of credit for UDB based on increased equity for the bank to play its role effectively as government's development finance institution financing long-term projects, especially in the agriculture sector. With regard to allocation and utilization of resources, the committee recommends that the allocation microfinance support center be increased by UGX 20 billion, given its role in boosting the economic activities of vulnerable active poor. In addition, the allocation for prisoners be increased by UGX 0.22 billion to enable Uganda Prison Service meet the additional expenses associated with the increased number of prisoners resulting from the COVID-19 measures put in place by government, thus causing the capacity of prisons to operate above 300%. I'm about to conclude, Right Honourable Speaker. In conclusion, Right Honourable Speaker, in the short run, in the event that the economy is unable to register a significant rise in foreign inflows, government should adjust its fiscal policy stance and opt to cut spending in less critical areas without undermining growth objectives. Subject to the above recommendations, Right Honourable Speaker, the committee recommends approval of government to borrow up to $300 million for budget support for financial year 2019-20 from IDA of the World Bank Group to provide sufficient financial resources to the health sector and to mitigate effects of COVID-19 on the Uganda economy, and special drawing rights 361 million, equivalent to 491.5 million from the International Monetary Fund for balance of payments and budget support to address the negative effects of COVID-19 in financial year 2019-2020. I beg to report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairpersons. You have laid your minutes already there? Okay, honourable members, you have heard the report. 1 minute, Babari, 1 minute, Kangwaje. What rule?
Right Honourable Speaker, I'd like to move a point of procedure. Right Honourable Speaker, I've clearly listened to the submission by the chairperson. Right Honourable Speaker, from the start, I must say, I have no problem or objection to the loan, because a loan to fund COVID stimulus is long overdue. But, Right Honourable Speaker, we have a problem with the schedule the chairperson is attempting to include in the process of approving the loan, to go to even the extent of suggesting reallocation of figures. That purely is on appropriation side. What we are doing under the loan is to establish conditions for approval of the loan.
And when we come to the supply side of application of the loan, it's purely a job that should have been done by the budget committee with the clear scrutiny of that schedule. So as we proceed, Right Honourable Speaker, I'm absolutely having no objection to the total sum being borrowed for COVID support, but I would like us to proceed in such a way to look smart and not look ugly, and delete the section that approves the schedule attached, because that is appropriation. To go to even extent of reallocating figures says this is not amount here, should be amount here, would not be appropriate at this scale. If government wants to do so, or a chairperson, then a schedule of supplementary should properly be laid and should be properly be scrutinized by the appropriate due process, and that is our procedural point of view, Right Honourable Speaker.
So you are taking issue with Table 5?
Yes, I'm taking issues with Table 5. And the issues I'm taking is that I have absolutely no objection with the loan application, which should be generally for budget support. But with the Schedule 5, as it is, that is hinging on the powers to appropriate, which powers we cannot do so at this stage, Right Honourable Speaker.
Honourable Chair of the Budget Committee. Let's hear the chair of the...
Right Honourable Speaker, these issues, as you know, the crisis is ongoing right now. We raised these issues with the Minister of Finance. We discussed these issues and we agreed, and we have signed the communication from Minister of Finance. And with your permission, I wish the Honourable Minister of Finance could make a comment, could supplement what I'm saying.
Honourable Member, I think the complaint of the members is that you are now taking over the work of the Budget Committee. Did they have an opportunity to study this proposal? That's the issue. Honourable Gwar.
Right Honourable Speaker, what the chair has done is deliberate. First of all, to say that he sat down with the Minister of Finance and agreed. It's already a betrayal of your role as a member of Parliament and doing the work for the institution. Secondly, Right Honourable Speaker, I expect, or we would expect, the Minister of Finance to be the one to table the schedule. But what we are doing right now is to approve the loan. And Right Honourable Speaker, I have absolutely no problem with the loan, because we labored during the budget process to ask the minister to ensure that some funding is put in UDC and UDB in order to stimulate production. So we have no problem as far as the loan is concerned. But the committee is overstepping its boundary by now attempting to smuggle the laying of the schedule, which must be done by the minister, in order to hoodwink us to approve the schedule and then to avoid going to the budget committee. This we can't allow, Right Honourable Speaker. Some people are attempting to usurp the power of this institution to appropriate, and it cannot be done in broad daylight. Let it be done maybe at night when we are not seeing, but not in broad daylight.
Honourable Kakoza.
Madam Speaker, really, I would like to add to what my colleagues have said, and even to thank you, Speaker, that really you've been in this House, You're a friendly force of the executive. We should do things smartly. Because for me, passing a loan, it doesn't take a minute. Allowing a committee to scrutinize it doesn't take long. Why do you want, even a clerk now should have been questioned, how do you write such a report to make an appropriation in a loans committee? You see, what you are trying to do is a deficit financing in the economy, and nobody is against it. There are two ways you do support such an economy in emergency. It's by deficit financing. You are borrowing internally and externally. The Committee of Economy has done its part. The Minister of Finance come and lay a schedule, and you bring it to the House, you commit it to the budget, it takes about 3 minutes, and we go procedurally correct, rather than usurping powers of other committees. As simple as that. You don't need much. Madam Speaker, with the guidance, I think the practice of this House, how we deal with the work in the House, should be standard, should be overrun, should not be overrun. Otherwise, the precedence we are creating is not correct for us. It's not good. Don't do things in a haphazard manner and it becomes clumsy when you have a friendly force. Nobody is against that deficit financing, but we should follow the procedure how our rules are. That's I beg to submit.
Trade, Chairman of Trade.
Right Honourable Speaker, we have passed budget support loans here. This is not the first time. And we had budget support loans from budget support loan number 1 up to budget support number 9 from the same IDA bank. And the way we have been passing these loans, you can't pass a loan without a schedule. That's the only way you can audit a loan. And I don't think World Bank would accept to put money in a pool without knowing what exactly that money is going to do. We have given money here to capitalization of UDB. That is a benchmark. We have put money to capitalize UDC. That's a benchmark. There is no way you will pass a loan without a schedule. If you want further scrutiny, then the other committee of budget and whatever, when they are considering supplementaries, this is their work. They will do it later. But let us allow to pass a motion to pass this loan yesterday. I thank you, Madam Right Honourable Speaker.
No, Honourable, I want to know whether in all the other loans we have actually included a schedule of this nature. That's what I want to know. And you name them, those which we have.
Yes, Right Honourable Speaker. One loan we passed here, which even had caused the controversy, was one of NMS. You remember when we passed money to NMS to buy PPPs, PPEs, and money was mentioned here. That's why NMS came back with a petition to say that money was awarded to them and was not given to them. Then the explanation was this was money in the pool, which had to do so many other things, and the Minister of Finance would be allowed to vary wherever they found a gap. So, Madam Speaker,
now
that's for information.
Honour members, yes,
Madam Speaker.
Mutevi, Honour Mutevi.
Right Honourable Speaker, by the admission of the chair himself, he implied that the schedule had been smuggled into this report. We know very well that appropriation cannot be done by the Committee of the National Economy. And what is indicated in the report is appropriation. Isn't it procedurally right that we agree to pass the loan with an amendment by removing the schedule?
Yes.
Madam Speaker, I think let us do first thing first. Let us not mix up the things. I think what we need, Madam Speaker, let us pass the loan. The issue of appropriation will be should be handled separately. But for purposes of this sitting, because it's a committee of national economy, it brings us the report for the loans for approval. So let us approve the loan. Then the issue of appropriation can be handled later. Yeah, let us separate these things.
So what do we do with the submissions of the chair on the appropriation? Because they are there on the Hansard. Yes, Honorable Gwas.
Procedure, Speaker. Procedure, Speaker. We need to approve. We need to approve the report of the committee, and I think it is important that the committee should probably withdraw, tidy up the report so that we know what we are approving as a report from the committee. Because now approving it as it is, Right Honorable Speaker, is like approving both the report of the committee and the schedule. So what we now need to do is the committee to separate the document so that you know what you are laying, what is actually the committee report which you want Parliament to approve. And then you leave the rest for the Minister of Finance to lay as a schedule. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, you know, we have always approved loans here, and they will categorize that this is going for capacity building, this is going for the vehicles, this is going for the construction. My understanding is what is listed there is the proposal under the loan, because we can't approve just in blanket that is budget support, but just in generalities. We shouldn't do that. We stop approving loans in generalities, but we must know what is it going to. Is it so? As me, that was how I understood it, Madam Speaker. But if it is a schedule for appropriation, that's a different matter.
Let's get the Minister of Finance. Minister of Finance. Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker and colleagues, there are two things. One, the lender did insist that they would like to know where this money is going to be applied. And we thought it would be good procedure for us to come to the committee and say this is how the money will be spent. That's one point. Point number two, there is a supplementary schedule where these things are going to come back. These things are going to come back. So me, I would say that since, yes, if the House think that we are asking them to appropriate by approving this list, then we can withdraw. I mean, the committee, the chairperson of the committee can withdraw this table, but come back. We still have to come back for the supplementary.
Yeah, but I hope you are not thinking that if we pass this, you are free. You still have to. But this is your document. I don't know where is the chair? Chair of the committee. Madam Speaker. Let's hear from the chair of the committee.
Yes, Amen.
Okay, Otieno. What about Otieno? Okay, Otieno.
Madam Speaker, a point which has to be made is that there is a distinction between project support and budget support. Project support is support which is given to specific activities. But in the case we are talking about budget support, which is money intended to help the government overcome its budget deficit. So, Madam Speaker, I wouldn't agree with the Minister of Finance that these are monies intended for space, because this is not a project support, it is a budget support. And I would not agree with colleagues who are saying that the Committee of National Economy should separate the loan from issues of appropriation. So that we pass the loan, and then the Minister of Finance comes back to the House and we appropriate to the items which they want to fund using this money.
Honorable Chair.
Right Honorable Speaker.
Let's hear from the chair.
Madam Chair, before the chair comes in to clarify this point.
Yes.
The loan, you have said it in your objectives. That's quite perfect. You are borrowing 1.1 trillion from the World Bank. That's perfect. But you cannot go ahead to usurp the power of the Minister of Finance to say you are the one bringing a schedule. After bringing a schedule, then you appropriate instead of committing to the committee. So it cannot happen. What you need to do, actually I'm questioning the clerk who wrote that report. He could have advised you like the minister, like Honorable Saida Bumba. He read the objectives of the loan. The terms were known by Parliament. They adopted the report. But what is behind on that report you have? You are saying after adopting a report, please even pass the schedule at a go. This is what we are saying. There are procedures of the House.
Honourable members, can I ask the chair to withdraw table 5?
Procedure. Procedure, no, Speaker.
A procedure. Careful, and then I come to Victoria.
A procedural point that we are missing here is that although this is although this is budget support, it is tied to specific priority area by the financer. It's under the IDA. It cannot just be open budget support. It is tied to specific priorities which are being prioritized under the circumstance of COVID. And these are the areas that they have given here. So it's just doing double work. Of course, if the budget committee...
No, it cannot be double work. This loan will not appropriate.
Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker.
Appropriate to this loan, please. No.
Right Honourable Speaker,
Yes.
I wanted to seek your indulgence. We normally have deficit financing through either project financing loans or budget support loans. Budget support loans are conditional loans. Budget support loans come with some conditions. The earlier ones we passed, including the laws we amended, including the company laws and the others. So now that the Committee of National Economy has scrutinized the loan, what they have presented is no longer for the Committee of National Economy. It is now plenary. The Committee of National Economy is not superior to plenary. So it is now the plenary to pass the loan. A week from now, we are going to have the budget approval. A loan approval is just a framework of financing deficit financing. But the actual loans are also appropriated by the Committee of Budget through the appropriation process. So there is no way the Committee of Economy can usurp the powers of the Budget Committee. So I would like to plead, as a person who was in this committee for 10 years, and we had a big debate then, Madam Speaker, Ace Parliament, on the issue of whether we should go budget support or remain with project financing. I would request that we pass the loan, and then the other committee will at an appropriate time do its work, because the loan is going to be released to the pool, and we are the ones who passed the Public Finance Management Act, which is a single treasury account, which is consolidated. Madam Speaker, I seek your guidance that we pass the loan as is. The other committees will play their role at the right time. We are complementary. We are not having boundaries as committees.
Honourable members, I ask the chair to withdraw table 5, so that the Minister of Finance will come separately.
Right, Honourable Speaker, on behalf of the committee, I submit I will withdraw table 5.
Okay.
The ministry will come and seek permission on how to use the money. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Honourable members, with that amendment, I put the question that the report of the committee be adopted. Those in favour say aye, the contrary no. Ayes have it. Please go to item 7.1.
Report on the national economy on the proposal by government to borrow.
No. Where are you?
One statement by Minister on weekly updates on the activities of the National Task Force on COVID-19.
Right Honourable Prime Minister. And mindful that we don't have too much time, if you could summarize, yes.
Right Honourable Speaker, for easiness of audibility, I seek your authority to let me put aside the...
Okay, you can move it down. Move it down.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, colleagues, I thank this august House for the good work that you have done and continue to do to support the struggle against COVID-19 pandemic. I also want to thank you for the oversight role you are playing. The bills you have passed and the motions moved, and many issues, including issues of national importance. This is the way to promote our democratic building in our country. Regarding COVID-19, we have observed with appreciation honourable members of Parliament in different constituencies supporting different task forces and creating awareness using the media to mobilize our people to fight against this pandemic. Right Honourable Speaker, the representatives of Parliament on the National Task Force are making useful contributions during the discussions and making significant input and insight. Overall, we are making progress. However, you have noticed from the updates of the Ministry of Health, the number of positive cases are rising. As of today, we have registered 489 cases with 72 recoveries. Among us, these are 7 health workers. The infection of our frontline health workers is an unfortunate development which we are investigating to establish what might have gone wrong or caused this and put in place prompt remedies to prevent further infections. Right Honourable Speaker, the clear signal from the recent rise in positive cases is that we need to step up the known preventive measures: regular washing of hands with soap, avoiding touching our nose, mouth, and eyes. In addition, we should avoid crowded places. I'm glad you do. and let's make sure that they are obvious to all Ugandans. Right Honourable Speaker, since my last statement, a number of developments have taken place. As you heard yourself last night from the President, we are cautiously easing the lockdown to enable business to resume some level of normalcy. For example, private vehicles are being allowed on roads apart from the 40 border districts and a number of other measures. In addition, standalone shops, excluding those in arcades, have been allowed to reopen effective 4th of this month. We have also noticed that a number of people are walking in public places without wearing face masks. It should be noted the Prime Minister has the authority of the Speaker for a limited duration. It should be noted that wearing face masks should not be viewed as a punishment, but as a measure that benefits, protects the individual and those around him or her. Right Honourable Speaker, the decision to only allow truck drivers who test negative to COVID-19 to come into the country is now being implemented. The number of positive drivers, totaling over 300, have been turned back to their countries of origin at the Ugandan borders. This shows the decision we took was the right one. Efforts are being undertaken to fast-track testing of truck drivers to reduce the congestion. Right Honourable Speaker, the issue of the impact of COVID-19 on the economy had already been talked about, and you directed that the Minister responsible for the economy makes a statement and then a discussion when we return. We are closely monitoring the situation in the border districts when the lockdown measures have not been eased. We are observing with a view to taking appropriate actions. As stated by HE last night, relief food distribution, which has been a subject of this August House discussion, to the people who have been affected adversely by the lockdown measures is going to continue. To date, more than 1.8 million Ugandans in Kampala Works and Mukono and in hospitals and orphanages across the country have been served. This is 300,000 more people than what had been targeted to be served. The Minister responsible for disaster management will in due course give a detailed update to this August House on how the exercise is going to be conducted. Right Honourable Speaker, the question of reopening schools was discussed again thoroughly last night, and the Honourable Minister responsible for education will come with a statement on the matter. Right Honourable Speaker, I would now like to make some specific responses as briefly as possible on issues that remained unanswered during our last presentation. The questions will start with the Right Honourable Speaker. The Right Honourable Speaker raised the issue about non-availability of both ambulances for the island districts. And the answer is that there is no boat ambulance that is operational now. However, the Ministry of Health has procured 3 boat ambulances to be deployed in the island districts. These boats are expected to arrive mid this month. Santa Alum raised the issue of Oyam district getting an ambulance. Here the Ministry of Health allocated an additional ambulance for northern Uganda to serve Oyam district. It will be stationed at Lira Hospital and will be available on call as and when need arises. There are also 2 full-time ambulances stationed at Elegu border post. Honorable Okabe proposed that money raised through COVID-19 response fund be used to strengthen the healthcare system instead of buying vehicles. The response priority, this is now the answer. The response priorities.
Order, please. Order, members.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. The response priorities to COVID-19 also require some vehicles to transport responders and also to distribute logistics. And that's why vehicles have been prioritized. With additional resources, the healthcare system will definitely be improved. Honorable Uma inquired about government's plan in terms of food for the areas that have been gazetted as quarantine centers. And this is specifically on the island areas. The Ministry of Health, this is the answer, working with the Office of the Prime Minister, is supporting quarantine centers with food, although there have been some logistical gaps which have now been addressed. Honorable Latif Sabagala raised an issue on how government will spend the money on masks. Government plans to spend 35 billion shillings for the procurement of masks. Noreen Basemera raised the concern that some sub-counties in Kibale district lack health center 2s and health center 3s. She wondered why government does not use part of the COVID money to address such needs. The response: the only construction prioritized under COVID-19 are the intensive care units at regional hospitals and laboratories at points of entry. Health Center 3s are being handled through another funding program, but the concern is very much appreciated. Honorable Ongalo Bote requested special consideration to be given to Kalaki District in allocation of ambulances. Kalaki District, like other districts, will be considered once the ambulances are available. Atkins Kapsabe inquired on how Bwera Hospital missed out on the cars, on the vehicles that were distributed. Vehicles, this is the answer, vehicles received were distributed to districts that had recorded COVID-19 cases, and a special consideration is also given to those with points of entry. In this case, Bwera will be considered for the next round of allocations since it meets the criteria set. Atiku Bernard asked when cartridges required to test COVID-19 samples will be available so that all the drivers crossing into Uganda border are tested and given the results within an hour? The answer is there is limited supply of cartridges due to overwhelming demand globally. However, the Ministry of Health has decentralized testing to labs close to the borders, including mobile laboratories. Results now take a much shorter time than before. In addition, gene expert machines have been provided to Mutukula and the results are released every hour. Mobile PCR testing equipment has been deployed at Tororo Hospital to cater for Malaba and at Juman Hospital to cater for Elegu. Results for 300 samples are released every 4 hours.
The bills include the ones of today?
Joy Ngom raised a concern on when Irira district would receive an ambulance to handle COVID-related cases, and the answer is that Lira Regional Hospital received an ambulance from among those that were donated recently. Honorable David Mutebi
I think there's something here.
Raised concern about the interventions taken to address the COVID-19 threat from truck drivers picking sugar from Lugazi factory. And the answer is Lugazi Sugar Factory and other similar factories have been identified as high risk. Hence, the Ministry of Health has enhanced COVID-19 prevention and surveillance efforts. And a few questions on security. I'm about to conclude, Right Honourable Speaker. Honourable Macho asked why people who are being taken to quarantine centres in Tororo are carried on police pickups as if they are criminals. The response, Right Honourable Speaker, is that there are a few ambulances. Emergency teams use government pickups, including police vehicles, since these are the readily available means to transport suspected cases of COVID-19 to quarantine centers. Being transported by a police pickup or truck does not make one a criminal. Honorable Kibaria Morris wanted to know why the police officers involved in the COVID-19 operations have not been paid their allowances. The answer I have is that I've been informed by the Minister of Internal Affairs that allowances to eligible officers has been paid. There were some delays due to some administrative issues, but these have been sorted. In case of any future complaints, appropriate steps shall be taken by the responsible ministry to have expeditious resolution of such issues. Mole Lanyero raised a matter on the clan clashes in Lamore due to land conflicts, where 250 homesteads were affected. Right Honourable Speaker, arrests were made and the files are with the resident state attorney. Deployments have been made and the Office of the Prime Minister, through the Minister of Disaster Preparedness, has dispatched both relief and non-relief items. Ashraf Olega raised the need to deploy more troops at the border from Koboko up to Elegu. Government has deployed more police and UPDF personnel at the border points to stop any illegal entry into the country. And the last couple of responses, Johnson Muyanja sought for clarity about guidelines for reopening schools on whether we shall have a dead year for all or not. And the answer is that following this, his address on COVID-19 yesterday, His Excellency the President guided that schools will remain closed as scientific studies are being done. Any government will continue to pursue the distance learning methodology on TV, radio, and newspapers for the learners to learn during the lockdown. However, at an appropriate time, the Honourable Minister of Education will come with a comprehensive statement in the House on this matter. And many of the questions that had been raised on education have not been included in these responses because they are going to be covered by the Honourable Minister of Education's response. And finally, Honourable Agnes Kunihira raised a concern on government plan on salary payments for teachers in private schools. In a circular dated 18th May 2020, the Minister of Education wrote all directors, proprietors, and heads of education institutions to ensure that all teachers and workers in educational institutions, especially private-owned institutions, are paid during the lockdown period in accordance with the Employment Act and as per agreed employment contracts. So, Right Honourable Speaker, I thank you for giving me this opportunity to make a short statement and also to answer some of the questions. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. I know we don't have too much time. Please, honour members, please give me an opportunity. Honour members, please. Honour members, we have 20 minutes. I want to give some members who had indicated earlier in the week that they wanted to raise questions on COVID to raise those issues now. Honourable Nyenduoha, followed by Honourable Bangura, Honourable Macho, Leader of Opposition. Honour members, can we start with those, please? Let's start with those. Let's start with those. Just be brief, Honourable Nyenduoha.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I want to address an issue which needs the attention of the Office of the Prime Minister and the Minister of Disaster. Bulisa is one of the border districts, and in your communication, Right Honourable Prime Minister, we are aware that some of the guidelines that you're supposed to follow for COVID-19 is the issue of avoiding crowds and social distancing. But in the recent past, Bulisa district has experienced a very big challenge of floods, where we have 3 sub-counties that have been affected, plus 2 town councils. And we are talking of more than 1,000 households have been affected by the floods. And in the event that these floods have affected these people, most of them have been residing in mosques and churches. So it means there is nothing like social distancing or overcrowding being adhered to in this place. Right Honourable Prime Minister, I would like to request you that you also take in interest in Bulisa district, where all these people have been affected. We realize that many of our people have been displaced, and would request your office to make sure that at least there is some kind of temporary shelter for these Ugandans that are being displaced. In the same spirit, many of these Ugandans who are being displaced by these floods do not have enough food relief for their homes. Property has been lost, homes have been destroyed. And even health-wise, there is a danger to the sanitation, that most of the latrines have been submerged by water. So as we look at COVID affecting the people in Uganda today, we should also know that we are going to have a very serious danger of cholera in some of these places. So therefore, I would request your office to take care of the health of the people of Lisa, even as we look at COVID in the country. Honourable Minister, I would also request that you take care of the livelihoods of these people, because at the moment, as we look at forward and COVID and its effects, even the livelihood of the people of Lisa has been greatly affected. I'm therefore requesting you to take care of this and make sure that the people of Lisa are also given the priority as other water bodies are being taken care of. Because when you look at the water bodies that are being taken care of, Lake Albert has not been mentioned in all these reports. And many of the districts, the Albertine Graben, are being affected by these outrage of the floods. I'm therefore requesting you to come on board and make sure that the people of Lisa and other districts that are surrounding Lake Albert are taken care of in this regard. Thank you so much.
Let's conclude. Honourable Bangura, 2 minutes, followed by Macho, then Leader of Opposition. Honourable members, I'm taking the members who had indicated earlier in the week. Let me finish with them.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable.
Honourable members, it's almost curfew time. I'm trying my best to give opportunity. Please.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, I want to start by appreciating the Prime Minister for the continuous support he has given and also the good responses that we continue to hear. The people of Malaba, we've been having challenges, but I want to thank you for the support that we are getting. Right Honourable Prime Minister, I raised here concern where I requested that border districts be facilitated over and above the facilitation for other districts that are internal, because our security is overstretched and their facilitation is meager. The task force is also overstretched and their facilitation, of course you're aware, is like other internal districts that may not even be having as many cases as we have there. Then, Right Honourable Prime Minister, what I wanted to raise last week was a serious concern of the jam that had been caused because of the strike by the Kenyan drivers. But I also want to appreciate the support and the interstate relationship whereby we received a minister from Kenya who addressed the Kenyan drivers and the jam eased up. But the problem right now at the border, Right Honourable Prime Minister, I need your attention. The problem right now at the border, whereas you've assured us that the testing is moving very fast, I want to tell you this has to be investigated such that we can really ascertain how fast the testing is. The border is still jammed. As I speak to you now, we have up to about 50 kilometers. Yesterday, I sent my small team from the border to go and investigate what was happening on the other side. They told me that the jam is now 57 kilometers deep into the Kenyan side. And that is time and again making the Kenyans threaten to stop bringing cargo to Uganda because of what they imagine is slow testing on our side. However, what I found out through that investigation yesterday, that there's also a disconnect between the relationship, the agreements between the ministries of health. On the Kenyan side, they are issuing different certificates. Every district is issuing a certificate that is not authenticated enough to be accepted by our people when they reach the border. So maybe we need to harmonize on that, so that we have uniform certificates. If issued in Nairobi or even in Bungoma, it should be honored here. So when they reach at the border, they have their certificates, but again, they are subjected to fresh assessment because the certificates are not uniform, and that's why the jam is too much. Information from the border.
Honourable Macho.
Madam Speaker,
please, you honour members. I've noted him. I'll call you. Honourable